No.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black But 91. We are talking to you guys about Shaq and talking to you guys about Kirsten, and we are breaking down the latest episode. But we're talking about the fact that, I know that Shaq was a little bit annoying in this episode. Let's be honest, he was. It was a little bit annoying this episode. But what you missed is what I'm about to break down, because there's a lot that's happening behind the scenes. I said about this last week. I said, he made it clear that he wanted her to be there. In this episode, we found out that not only did he want her to be there, he made hotel reservations. She said she was going to come down on a Friday, and she ended up not coming. And the reason why she ended up not coming is because she didn't know how serious he actually wanted her to be there. Hey, but there's something deeper that I want to break down. I'll probably do a part 2 of this as well, called The Wounded Male or the Wounded Man, to kind of explore this deeper in terms of what's happening between Shaq and Kirsten from his side. But on this particular episode and this particular video breakdown, I really want to focus on two things. I want to focus on the initial epicenter of the problem between Kirsten and Shaq recently that happened, in terms of him not feeling supported, and number 2, also as well, the way that Devon approached the subject. Now, I don't say that Devon's bad. I'm not saying he's anything like that. I'm just saying that I think this is where sometimes I feel like men in the general public sometimes can feel like they're not being supported, because just like Dr. Pepper's time as well, I think it was, or Dr. PR, whoever was looking at them last time, when Shaq brought up how he felt about something, there was no validation of how he felt. There was no acknowledgement necessarily of how much he felt. Rather, there was a correction on his end, which is fair. But it never seems to so by the end, you always see his face looking a bit slum and a little bit down. So I'm going to break it all the way down for you. So if you want to know more about what you actually missed, and I'm going to provide clips for you, then stick with this video. If you're new to the channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the what? Uploads, baby. Don't forget to click on that bell button, make it black. That means you'll subscribe to all notifications, so you know when we go live. We're going live tonight with a super panel as well. So, and as for those of you who are returnees, we know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated. Listen, we're going to get into the video. Let's break this all the way down. And first and foremost, I want to start more on a case with, the original epicenter of the problem, because I think this is where we started, right? And I think, again, miscommunication is a big thing that hampered this situation between the two as well. So let's get into that space and break this all the way down for you guys. Okay, cool. Let me put this here so you can see it. Let's bring it up and let's get into this. Okay. There we go. Oh, you're going to have to get out the way, baby. There we go. Okay, let's go.
If you want me to be somewhere with you, say that at the very beginning. Just say that. Kirsten, I want you there.
Kirsten, I said I wanted you there because I made hotel accommodations, and you said you wasn't going to come down on Friday, and you said, I was like, okay, and then you brought up.
Okay, so this is the epicenter of the problem at the moment, right? The epicenter of the problem is that, the original beef is with the fact that, they made reservations, well, she was meant to come down and see him when he was doing his work, right? And so the large issue here that's happening is Shaq already feels himself. Shaq has got a previous wound, I believe, from childhood of not feeling supported in all the ways he needs to feel supported. And so his work is a really big thing for him, right? So many people miss this because they're like, wow, he's so needy, why would he want her there? Yeah, but when you're achieving things, when you're winning, and you're climbing up certain ladders, when you're prospering, when you're getting to these particular things, some people really want other people to be involved in their vocational kind of work, right? So, for instance, someone might be involved in a charity, and they might want their partner to also be involved in the charity too, or in their charitable work. In fact, something similar happened, I think, a few seasons ago when we saw, was it Kirsten, another Kirsten as well, and what's his name, the one that was being so difficult, and I forgot his name now. shaved head, he was an environmentalist, right? Some people's work, they want others to also be involved with it to some level of degree. And they want some level of support by you being there, right? Now, I know myself as a YouTuber, I don't need my girl on my neck, but it'd be nice for her to be, ask questions about it and da, which Kirsten actually did. But what he wants is the physical support too, for her to also be there. Now, the key part of this is he actually let her know this. So what she's talking about is wanting it to be so made so clear and assertively because she wants to be told, come here. And it's like, you don't need to be told, come here. Just be honest that you didn't, like she said, I wasn't aware of how much you really wanted it. That's my fault. That's it. But then ask him to be more assertive about it. He didn't need to. He actually told you what it was. Come, I want you to come. I've made reservations. You said you're going to come on a Friday. So this excuse about being more assertive does not work here. That's actually a deflection. And this is my biggest problem with what people didn't see. Because then later on, when they do go end up speaking to Devin Franklin, he doesn't bring that part up. You're not going to pretend as if the reason why reason why you didn't come is because I wasn't assertive. You didn't come because you had other commitments. That actually hurts the person because you took your commitments more seriously, didn't communicate effectively with me, didn't realize how much you ditching me to go to other commitments while you already made it with me first, seemingly, hurt me. So let's not pretend as if it was he's being needy and didn't. No, you said you were going to come. Then you decided not to come. Now we can talk about the deeper depth of his emotional wound, which I do believe exists. But let's keep that a buck and let's keep that in perspective, because that's where actually the frustration starts. Okay, so let's play a little bit more. We'll discuss it.
You had to work on Sunday.
Where's Kirsten and Shaq? Like, I don't know.
We go to the bathroom.
They left us.
I mean,
They've been gone a while.
So I played the wrong clip there. Apologies, guys. I was meant to play that clip a little bit further on as well, and I played the wrong particular clip. But again, he says again, you chose to go to work on the Sunday rather than come with me to the work situation. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not aware of, in terms of her work schedules and how many times he's actually asked her to come to a work event. Now, if this is an every week situation, this might not be feasible. If she's not free on those particular days. If she's not free on the particular days, it won't be feasible to do this, right? So I want to keep that in mind, but I don't know. I don't have that information. So if you do have that information, great. I wasn't aware of that information. From what I've heard so far, it's simply been that she ditched the original plan to go to work or go to a family barbecue situation, whatever, and didn't end up coming with him on a Sunday when originally she said she was going to come down on a Friday. So that would be you ditching the commitment. That's why the original hurt is actually existing. Now, when we go a little bit later on into the conversation, okay, they're going to ask Shaq a question about how he's feeling about whether he feels like he's being supported. And this is where the conversation gets a little bit interesting for me, I think, as well, because, this is where I think I felt like I was like, where is the support that he needs? This is very similar to Dr. Pepper's situation where his feelings got invalidated and they validated her feelings. And whilst I understand that, let's validate both. As men, we want to also feel validated. And whenever we don't validate men's feelings too, this starts a very dangerous slope to go down. We validate women's feelings. Let's also validate the men's feelings as well. So let me get to what we're talking about here. And hopefully we'll get to conversation going.
I wish you were there. I can't believe you didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
After everything gets over, I'm like, well, why didn't you express this to me at the very beginning? Because had he made it sound like that at the very beginning, it would be no doubt and no question.
Now, see how she changes the whole perspective. That's not what happens, sis. Now, of course, and I think what would be fair, if I'm from a coaching perspective, what's fair is to say, okay, so why do you need him to make it so plain that he needed you there when he told you he wants you there? He then made the hotel reservations and then you agreed. So what's working on your side that you needed it to be so evident that he wanted him there. What you're really saying is, I need to feel desired. I need to feel like you actually want me there. Like, I didn't, and this is also coming from her childhood in terms of her priorities, because clearly her priorities was a Sunday. And so Sunday, her work became more of her priority. So what she did was she prioritized the work over him. Now, the interesting part is, the question is, why did she do that? And then the next part is also to say, why does she feel like that wasn't as heavy a commitment? And I think that leads us back to this particular point she's making. If he had made it so, if he had said, hey, I want you to be there, if he had stressed on the priority, she would have made it. And now this is interesting, and I don't want to go too deep, but let me go deep a little bit. Okay, permit me to do this. I've been doing some work and just kind of research and reading, and about how the impact of fatherlessness impacts people, or even emotionally distant fathers, how that impacts children. And one of the things that came up, which really intrigued me, even with Kirsten, is that having difficulty reading other people's emotions, the empathy aspect, right? You can struggle to read other people's emotions, or to even understand them to its fullest, and understand their cares and their concerns, because you're so used to one, surviving and having to be independent, and you having to be support others in a home perspective. It can be very difficult to attend to the needs of somebody who's in a relationship, because it's a completely different dynamic at that point, right? But it can be very difficult reading the emotions in that aspect, right? And I think another thing also too is a fearfulness of intimacy. So, she was crying out, for wanting him to spend more time with her. And then as soon as he wants to ask more time, she actually pulls away. And that's somebody that you can say that's a bit more fearful, avoidant. You've almost asked for more time. As soon as it's given physically and wanted and demanded from you, you didn't want it, right? So how it's going to look is like you only want it when you want it, which is what Shaq was actually saying earlier on, some earlier episodes ago. You want something when you want it. And actually, that's also a part of being emotionally avoidant, because you tend to go into what we call power struggles and power grapples. And the reason why you go into power struggles, things like this, where you try to control it, where I want it on my terms, not necessarily on yours, is because it's a way of protecting yourself. Right? So all of this is playing a part in the scene as well underneath, right? Okay. Let's
I wouldn't even ask any question. Like, I'll be like, I'm there.
Do you feel supported in the marriage?
Not at certain times.
Now, pause it there, because he said not at certain times. And her face was like, hold on a minute now. Her face said, hold on a minute now. What you talking about now? Her face said it all. Look, if you watch how her face ended, it's telling you everything you need to know. Look at her face. Wait, what? But his wording was not at all times. So there is times that he does feel supported, but it's not at all times. And I think this is really key. So this is where we need to pay attention to, because this is where the real conversation begins to start.
It's a yes or a no.
No.
I don't know why it had to be a yes or a no. The question was, do you feel supported in the marriage? Not at all times. Why did it need to be a yes or no? You know what I mean? Like, why did it have to be a yes or no? I don't feel supported at all times. I would want more support in the relationship. Why did it need to be a yes or no? You know what I mean? It's a bit, I don't know. It just felt like it didn't need to necessarily go there, but it went there, right? Let's play a bit more.
Okay. Do you feel you give support in the marriage? Just in general.
In general, yes.
See, why did he do that? No. Why did he do? See how he did that? That's what I'm talking about. That was cheeky. When you asked him, are you feeling supported in marriage? He said, hey, you know what? Not at all times. General answer is a yes or no. But then when you asked her about whether, do you feel like you support him? Right? And then you said, oh, just in general. Why add the just in general in there? Right? So you're already leading her down the road. Like, don't do that, bro. Like, you don't have to like, she's gonna answer. She knows exactly what you said. She ain't silly. All right. So I didn't feel like he needed to lead it down that way. but then you had to force him down a yes or no route, which didn't make no sense. I didn't feel supported at all times. But now you force him to say yes or no. Now it makes it sound as if he feels like he's having to say, I don't feel supported at all. Why? Because now how it's gonna sound to Kirsten is like, no, that's not the truth. That's not what's happening. When really it's not about all time. It's not about not being supported. It's about, I want a bit more support. Language is so important because now she could be wrestling against the fact he says, no, I don't believe you support me. And I always tell people, when people say never and always and forever and ever, these are words that are criminal in a relationship. You never wash dishes. That is a problem. Because now that person starts arguing against that line. I've never washed dishes. What about last week? Now you're gonna get into argument, but just know what I mean. You know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean because you said for you, I don't ever. See, do you see what I'm saying to you? It changes the dynamic of the conversation. That was my first I don't like what he's doing there. I don't like that particular phrase in the conversation, and it's starting a battle that doesn't need to be there.
Here is the reality. Unspoken expectations are relationship killers. I want my spouse to do something. I haven't expressed that I want them to do it. I haven't got them to.
But the point was, and so he's actually right though. Unspoken expectations are killers. They're the loudest sound in the room. On this occasion, he did let her know. Now, what should be actually discussed is, why was it so painful for you, Shaq? Then we get a real story behind it, because actually there's a reason why he was so hurt by this. Why were you actually hurt by this? Right? Because she missed it. She said sorry. So what's the big deal? The reason being is because I felt like, and we can go deeper, because actually it goes deeper into your childhood. That's where it comes from. It don't come from nowhere. It comes from childhood. It comes from having a lack of a fatherhood role in your life, an emotional wound being created, and having other experiences where you've been disappointed and let down, and then Kirsten's adding to it by letting you down. Now, it doesn't mean that Kirsten's the one that is actually doing the most damage. It just means that Kirsten's the present party who's kind of jabbing you in that wound that hasn't healed as of yet. That's where the conversation should have gone to, I feel, personally.
Agree to do it, but then I hold them accountable and I get upset as if I actually did. Then there's resentment. And that resentment is going to drive a wedge.
But he's talking some real stuff now. He's talking some real stuff now in this point, in that aspect as well. So, I don't disbelieve what he's saying at that point in time as well. So, he's talking some real stuff there as well. I won't disagree with him in any regard in that respect, in that instance as well. So definitely hear him on that. Let's just go back into it quickly.
This issue of support is a marriage deal breaker.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want to work on is,
and he's not lying there. It actually is, having not feeling like you've been supported is a huge thing. And I don't know if I've missed it or whatever. There's a part I really wanted to get into where they talk about, Okay, fantastic. Great, cool. So he's going to ask this question, which is really important to the next conversation, I think. Right? Let's get into it. Now, listen, the question he asked him was, how does support look like to you? So if I tell you what my support looks like, how is it later on you challenge me on, without really acknowledging or at least admonishing what I said about what support looks like to me? When Kirsten tells me I've done X, Y, and Z, but I've told you that's not what support looks like to me. Now, the one part that I agree with Devin in what he corrected, where he corrected Shaq, was when he said, "Hey, Shaq, you've just basically pooped on what she said. You should have acknowledged that first and foremost." Which is, first and foremost, you should acknowledge it. If someone tells you, "I believe I've supported you by doing X, Y, and Z," acknowledge it. Hey, I really do appreciate that, and I can see how for you've supported me in these areas. But for me, again, just to reiterate, what support looks like to me. But that doesn't happen in the conversation. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. All right. Okay. So he's explaining it again. He wants her to be. He wants her to be. He wants her to. Oh, I forgot the audio hasn't even been on, guys. I'm so sorry. The audio hasn't even been on for the last few ones I've done. I do apologize. I'll play the clip now so you can see it.
Doing something I love to do. That way you can appreciate when I go off the work. And that's why I was like, you know, even with the work event, I wanted you there. Not because of I'm just trying to show off my wife, but in that moment.
Okay, so he clearly explains why he wants it, and that's because of Devon's great question he asked him, and just like segueing him to this point. You know, it starts off with a great question from Devon Franklin, and that's how it gets his place. Right now, what's interesting is what's going to be what Kirsten says in return. I know you didn't hear everything that was said in the last kind of 2 or 3 clips because I had it on mute, but don't worry, we gonna get there. Okay, all right.
I feel like I am there for you. The time we visited Jackson for you to have the presentation down there, I had asked you all about your education. I try to be supportive as far.
Okay, pause, right? The reason why this conversation's gone left is because Devon forced it to go left. When he asked the question, when he asked it saying, do you think she ever supports you? And you force him to say yes or no, this is why the conversation's gone left. Because you force her down a lane to make it as if it's a black and white thing. No, she does support. So now also Shaq too has also got that in the back of his mind. It's yes or no when she says what she says, but that's not what I'm actually saying. Then you check him for it. But it's like it should have never got to this point. It should have been, okay, you do support me in different ways, right? You do support me in different ways. So I do feel supported, but this is how I want to be supported. It's almost like saying, I do feel loved, but this is how I want to be loved. And then going to the person, hey, but she told you how she wants to be loved. Accept it. We don't say that to people. We say, well, just because you show love this way does not mean another person receives love that way. So you need to speak the language that they're speaking. So why is it now when we're in this scenario about supporting him, we've changed it suddenly to go, well, she already gave you the answers about support. And you're going to see what I mean when I play these clips. Okay.
As like reminding you, hey, did you, get to work on the paper today? Did you find somebody to help you with it? Like I do those type of things. And it's like, I don't know if you're recognizing or really understanding that is me supporting you.
Now, beautiful, right? Because this is a good point. Do you recognize that being a method of me supporting you? And what he should be doing now is acknowledging, hey, I do see these things. And actually, maybe I didn't even realize your support in all these other areas. I would still love to see, I would still want you there though. That's my ideal. That's my ideal. And then she can push back and say, hey, well, I can't be there every week because I've got work. Then he can say, okay, let's compromise. Let's do once every month. You come in, I would love to see you once every month. But it never gets there because the conversation started with do they support you? Yes or no? When it never started that, it was like at points, I feel like she supports me. And that's where it should have stayed. But Devon took it to the yes or no. And it's created drama unnecessarily, right? This is how one wrong question can force things into a narrative. I've been there. I've done this as well. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. I just know this because I know I've done this. When you lead the person with a question when it comes to couples kind of therapy, and you lead it down a lane, and it's like
it does make me feel like, okay, like I'm not doing enough.
Yes, we did go to Jackson for the research conference, and I did show you the board, but it's like
pause, right? So what he's done here is he didn't acknowledge and admonish. So what he did is acknowledged it. He said, yes, you did go to the thing, because he's about to start an argument. He's about to disagree. Because remember how they started. Is it a yes or no? So now he's on that line. He's going to follow that line, right? When we could have guided him away from there. So now he's saying, yeah, I hear that. You went to that was the first week you did that, blah, 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 blah. Right? But, and that's what's coming up. The but is coming up because he that's not how he wants support. Right? Okay. Let's get into this.
It's so much more than that. Like that was literally like our first week being married. Like it wasn't like this is really big for him.
Hold on.
So pause, yeah. So he says, obviously, look, those are small things, but this is not as big as the one that I wanted you to come to, right? So again, priorities again in terms of it being bigger than the other thing. Look, and again, this maybe again go back to two of them both can make a better play with this. He could have stressed how important it is because it's far more important than the other one that he went to. This is far more important, and he could have stressed that as well. But he did tell her he wanted her there. But he could have stressed it a bit more in future. He could do that, right? How important it is, so that she knows, right? Okay. Now, because he's put the but there, and because he's now saying, but it wasn't as important as this particular day. Devon sets on his tracks. Fair play, because what he hasn't done is admonished what she's done and acknowledged, right? Look what's going to happen.
Hold on now. It's really hard to prescribe how someone should respond. It sounded like you were almost diminishing her support. If she had showed up or
Pause. Now he said, obviously, it sounds like you wanted to diminish her. Sound like you wanted to diminish her support. He was diminishing her support. So Devon's actually right there. But it started because you asked a question, yes or no. You actually diminished the you actually started him on that track. In fact, you started them both on that track with that simple question. That's why I had to show it from the very beginning of that question, because that question was so key when he said about yes or no. Right? He made the conversation go this way. So now in a place where he's saying you've diminished a contribution, and he's absolutely right. But he doesn't come back on to, okay, well, but you're like trying to understand it and explain it to her. Like what he's saying is he wants to support at the workplace. Now it might have been done, it just might have been edited. So of course, because we don't want to be a long conversation.
She's trying to show support or she's asking questions and that's not good enough. That might not motivate her to want to lean in and want to ask more questions. Because it's like, well, look, if I ask these questions and it's like, well, I didn't ask them the right way.
But that's not what he was asking, was it? No, but that wasn't what he was saying, was it though? That's what I'm saying. We've missed it. That's not what he was saying. What he said was those meetings were not important as the one that I wanted you to come to. Had nothing to do with questions. Now it might have been edited. So he might have mentioned about questions and how he wants to be questioned. But from what we can see, I'm only going about what I can see. Clearly, it was about her coming to meet him at these shows. So now you're focusing on that's not what he's focusing on. So if the person says this is how I want to be supported, what we need to be discussing is whether this support in this fashion is actually feasible. For instance, like you said, coming to his show. If she's working on a Sunday and he every time has a show, she may to say, look, I can do once every 3 months. Because I can't take it off work or whatever it is, right? Or I may be able to do a Friday and a Saturday, but I can't do the Sunday because I work on a Sunday, right? There is uncompromised and movement in there. But there was no validation for what he had said. He actually got corrected, but then no validation, which is why his face at the end is going to be the way it looks, right? Let's go to it.
That becomes really challenging because on some level, what she's looking for is also validation and acceptance.
No doubt. Yeah, absolutely. So she is looking for validation and looking for acceptance as well. So good point there as well. Yep, Shaq has to be aware of that don't diminish her contribution. Acknowledge it. Hey, I really do see the contribution. I see how you're asking me questions and and I can see that you're invested. And again, like I said, he then should be then let her know this is how I wanted to be supported.
Acceptance. Hey, I see you. Thank you for showing up.
Yep.
I am a very supportive person, and that also comes within time.
So now it's gone. Now it's gone. Because now is it the point where he was making, okay, has gone. All right. The point is gone because now we've taken it away from that. So now we've not admonished what he said. We've taken away from his point. And this is going to further. This can further push him down the communication ladder.
Off of each other. He's too hard to please. You know what? She doesn't care. Mm-hmm. In that space, we create our own narratives, and our own narratives.
His face ain't nothing. His face. Shaq's face is telling me all I need to know. Shaq's face telling me all I need to know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he wasn't helped. I'm just saying in a sense of. I feel like his issue wasn't solved. And it's the exact same thing happened with Dr. Pepper. His issue was not solved. It flipped again back round onto Kirsten. You know, you can see his face here, right? Very intense. But you know, I feel like that was what parts were missed. So, you know, I know before you guys kill Shaq and stuff, just know that I think there's another aspect to things, and I wanted you to kind of just have a different mindset as well. We're gonna drop a part 2 for this, don't worry, when we talk about the emotional wounded male, and we'll break it all the way down. So if you're new to the channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you guys. Still up, saluted. We'll see you again soon. You know what time it is.